Tonight's WAFB Healthline Report is sponsored by the Baton Rouge General Medical Center.
Memories. It's been said at the end of life's journey, they're all we have. For victims of Alzheimer's, not even that is true. For them, even the sweetest memories begin to fade in time. Often, one of the first signs of a life that is slipping away.
Hello, I'm Phil Rainier. Welcome to Alzheimer's, Slipping Away. If you're like most people, there are few things more horrifying than the prospect of slowly losing the ability to use your mind, to control your bodily functions. In less than 50 years, experts say it's a reality that could face more than 12 million people in this country, many of them members of the now aging baby boom generation, people like you and me. Well, in tonight's special Alzheimer's Slipping Away, we'll show you some of the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. We'll also tell you about the only medicine on the market to treat this devastating disease and how it's working on patients right here in Baton Rouge. The latest research on how we might slow down the progression of Alzheimer's in the future. And a new approach to adult daycare, one that brings kids into the picture. Also, where caregivers can go for the help and support they so desperately need. There's no question having Alzheimer's is a terrible fate. But what about caring for the loved one who at some point will rely on you for their every need? It's a responsibility that eventually faces the families of all Alzheimer's patients. For those who end up actually caring for their loved one, it can be the highest hill they'll ever have to climb. For a Satsuma family, it's been an emotional struggle.
Can you help me with these clothes today? Sure. Okay.
Marshall Tripp's 75-year-old mom, Dorothy, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 2 years ago. Marshall says she'll never forget her reaction to the news.
Well, a lot of tears. A lot of anger. In fact, I think at times I was angry at my mother, which is, of course, ridiculous, but I guess it's all part of the natural acceptance of something like this.
Experts say it's not unusual for family members to be angry at a loved one diagnosed with Alzheimer's. After all, someone they love very much is leaving them. For most people, symptoms of Alzheimer's start to show up long before loved ones are willing to admit it. Marshall says it was months before she finally took her mother to the doctor.
Well, it's primarily, like you said, denial, and the idea that was my mother, and this can't be happening to her. And, give me a pill so it'll be better. Fix it. It's something that you don't want to deal with, because it's not something that's going to be fixed by going to the hospital and getting rest and having a surgery, or it's not going to be fixed. It's going to be worse.
Since the diagnosis, Dorothy has been living with Marshall and her husband in their Satsuma home. She keeps these pictures of her mom and dad in her living room as reminders of days gone by. Her dad has since died. Marshall says she realized things would never be the same when her mother started forgetting how to do simple, everyday tasks like bathing and getting dressed. She almost set the house on fire once by putting a lit cigarette in the trash. Like most caregivers, Marshall says there are times when it all gets to be too much.
And it's amazing. Some days I can put her clothes out, which I do every day. And some mornings I may say, like on a Saturday, I say, I'm gonna just sleep in. And she'll get up and she'll be dressed. When I get up, I'll be amazed. I said, whoa, what a wonderful day. But other days it won't, she may have an overcoat going outside and it's 80 degrees or 90 degrees out. It just doesn't click in.
For husband Veston, who's disabled himself, watching over Dorothy every day while Marshall worked got to be more than he could handle.
One time she used to walk down to the Satsuma Road, This road's about 3 blocks long. Well, she walked down there one day and she kept walking. She got lost. didn't know when to turn around. And one of my neighbors happened to see her, there's a bunch of people standing on the side of the road talking to her, trying to find out where she lived. And a friend goes to church with me up there. He said, oh, that's Mr. Veston's mother-in-law. So he brought her home.
While Marshall still cares for a mother at home in the evenings, Dorothy now spends her days in an adult daycare. There she takes part in activities and is under constant supervision. Marshall says she invests and manages the rest of the time just by taking things day by day. A regular routine makes all the difference.
That's one of the main things with this kind of a disease, is to have a routine. They thrive on routine. You take them out of the routine and you're going to see a lot more unusual things that they're going to be doing.
Watching her mother become the child has without a doubt been one of the toughest things Marshall has had to face since the diagnosis. Every day, slowly but surely, a little more of her mother's mind slips away. Marshall says she misses her mom in many ways, but it's losing the little things mothers and daughters share for a lifetime that hurts the most.
You know, you can't say, Mom, how did you make such and such? You know, what's the recipe when you fixed dressing? How did you do that? It's gone. Forever.
Stories like Marshall's are not unusual for family members of Alzheimer's patients. In fact, some call these people the forgotten Alzheimer's victims because their own lives get lost in the care of another. Coming up on Alzheimer's Slipping Away, an intergenerational outlet for people consumed with the care of an Alzheimer's patient. Also, the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's and research that may offer new hope to both families and victims of this cruel disease.
Today, working hand in hand, a family of healthcare service providers is offering a single source for comprehensive, cost-effective, quality healthcare, a continuum of care to help ensure a lifetime of the best possible health for every member of every family in our community.
The continuum of care is what the General Health System is all about, working together to keep your family healthy.
The General Health System, teaching, leading, caring. Every day, more people than ever before are surviving cancer. With early detection, life goes on for 9 out of 10 people who've had skin cancer, for 8 out of 10 men with prostate cancer, for 9 out of 10 women with breast cancer. And the numbers grow every year thanks to earlier detection and advanced new methods of treatment, like those you'll find at the Baton Rouge General Medical Center.
Welcome back to Alzheimer's Slipping Away. There probably isn't a time one of us hasn't wondered if we're experiencing the early signs of Alzheimer's, whether it's misplacing our keys once too many times or forgetting names. It can be scary. The good news is, chances are what's happening to you isn't Alzheimer's at all. Just the same, experts have come up with 10 warning signs that will hopefully put your mind at ease.
4 million Americans have Alzheimer's. It robs a person of their memory, personality, and ability to do even simple tasks. All too often, the disease sneaks up on the patient and their loved ones. Forgetting important job information is one of the first signs something may be seriously wrong. Other symptoms include difficulty performing routine tasks, trouble with language, disorientation, poor judgment, problems with abstract thinking, misplacing things constantly. Also, major mood and behavior changes. Drastic personality changes is another warning sign, as is loss of initiative or enthusiasm. Since it's such a sad disease, not many people talk about Alzheimer's, a reality that may lead some to believe it's not a big problem. A recent survey by the National Alzheimer's Association shows that not to be the case, even among younger people.
A recent survey that the Alzheimer's Association commissioned indicated that 1 in 3 people knew somebody with Alzheimer's disease, and 1 in 10 had a relative with Alzheimer's disease. And we're also seeing, even though the disease is one that affects people primarily after 60, a lot more cases of early onset in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s.
If you've noticed some of the symptoms of the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's we just told you about in your life, you should talk to a doctor. Right now, there's no cure for Alzheimer's. Until recently, there wasn't even a medicine to treat it. But that's changing. Thanks to ongoing research, Alzheimer's patients may someday lead normal, productive lives, just like other people being treated for other diseases. But before we can walk, we must crawl. Researchers at one Baton Rouge nursing home started with the basics.
Since Alzheimer's patients often undergo drastic personality changes, behavior can be a big problem. Here in Baton Rouge, local researchers at the Guest House Nursing Home monitored the interactions of Alzheimer's residents during planned activities. The goal, to home in on anything that may tip caregivers off to unpredictable behavior common among Alzheimer's patients. Knowing about it ahead of time could help them control it, and maybe even keep patients from hurting themselves or others. These volunteers are testing the theory that blood sugar or glucose levels may have an effect on an Alzheimer's patient's ability to remember. They say controlling them, much the same way diabetics control their glucose levels, could help.
We're intrigued by the possibility that glucose regulation may be closely linked to progression of the disorder. And down the road, one might speculate that manipulating or treating the underlying glucoregulatory disorder in patients with Alzheimer's disease may somehow affect the rate of progression.
But the medicine this woman's taking is the first real treatment for Alzheimer's. It's called Tacrin. Baton Rouge physician Stephen Cavalier is one of the few doctors across the country allowed to test Tacrin before it was approved. He says the results are promising.
What you see in people are one of several different things. Some people with the Tacrin will actually have improvement in their memory, better recall, not as much forgetfulness. There's other people that won't really have that much objective change in their memory, but what you see is just an improvement in their behavior. They're able to interact better. They require less sedating medication than they did before.
Dr. Cavalier says Tacrin isn't effective in all Alzheimer's patients.
Well, I would say at this point the best candidate for Tacrin would be a patient who you diagnose as having Alzheimer's disease, who has mild or moderate symptoms of the disease, who's still able to communicate somewhat, but has some memory loss, some forgetfulness, some behavioral problems that are difficult to control.
Cavalier says, like all medicines, there are possible side effects.
It's still a rather complicated medication to use because there's a fairly, for an approved medication, there's a fairly high incidence of side effects. And the side effect that's the most serious is it can cause some liver damage or liver injury. And as a result of that, when people take the medication, they have to monitor certain blood tests on a weekly basis for the first several months that they take the medicines.
Like all diseases, genetics may play a major role in the future of Alzheimer's treatment. More on that later. Also ahead on Alzheimer's Slipping Away, how sign language may be keeping some Alzheimer's patients with us a little bit longer. And can exercise improve our memory as we get older? That and more still to come. Stay with us.
But, excuse me, do you know the early warning signs of a heart attack?
I never really thought about it.
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Do you know the early warning signs of a heart attack?
I know it's some sort of pain.
I just don't know.
Do you know the early warning signs of a heart attack?
Yes, I do.
The Chest Pain Treatment Center at the Baton Rouge General urges you to learn the early warning signs of a heart attack and help us save a life.
I'm too young for that.
Yours.
I'm not even worried about that.
It has to be the scariest word in the English language. When I went into the hospital last year, they had all the latest machines and tests and all. And I know that's what it took to make me better, but it didn't help me feel any less afraid. But Kathy did.
At Baton Rouge General, we're fighting the war against cancer with the latest technology. But fighting the war against fear takes something even more remarkable: our people and their extraordinary commitment to not only preserving life, but the quality of life.
Welcome back. When we think of sign language, most of us think it's for people who can't hear. In reality, it may well be a whole new way to communicate with Alzheimer's patients once considered too far gone to even interact with. Researchers at the University of Arizona see some promising signs from the work that they're doing.
Imagine not being able to ask someone for something as simple as a drink. Tell someone you're tired or say you're hungry. In the earlier stages of Alzheimer's, researchers think it happens a lot.
There is probably an attempt to communicate on the part of the patient, but they don't have the tools to do it.
This would be the sign for thirst. You cup your hand like you're taking a drink, and then cup your hand and then pretend to take a drink. Good.
Researchers at Arizona State University want to make it possible for Alzheimer's patients to communicate as long as they can. They're teaching these patients sign language.
We try to find ways to provide a higher quality of life within the realm of that illness. And my hope is that it will allow them to communicate and therefore provide a higher quality of life.
Besides thirst, the signs cover things like hunger and pain.
And then eating for hunger? Right, good. And then for pain?
Researchers say it's too early to tell if the patients are retaining what they're taught.
It's a sad thing to say because what we're waiting for is for the natural course of the disease to get worse. And that's, from a humanitarian side, that's very frustrating and very painful. But from the researcher side, that's the only way we're going to know if, in fact, this is really going to have a positive impact.
Researchers say even if the patients don't remember the signs, they're still benefiting from the one-on-one attention. Families report their loved ones are more alert and appear to have better self-esteem.
Researchers hope the sign language study will also give clues on how the brain processes information, as well as why people forget. You may have heard of the recent use it or lose it theory. Some researchers say people who use their minds more have less of a chance of developing Alzheimer's disease. Others speculate exercise may play a role or even slow down the process of memory loss that so often accompanies Alzheimer's. Both are controversial ideas, but that's not stopping people from trying to find out more. Researchers at Baylor College of Medicine are focusing on exercise.
Researchers already know exercise can have a tremendous benefit on a person's physical condition, whether they're young or old. But what about mental abilities like memory, one of the first things to go in an Alzheimer's patient? Researchers now want to know if exercise may help them too.
I'd like you to listen, and when I'm through, I'd like you to tell me everything you can remember from the story.
In this study, older people were given a series of memory and eye-hand speed tests before and after exercise.
She went to the police, and I think she was robbed on State Street.
Preliminary results showed exercise did not improve an older person's memory, but it may have slowed down the process that causes memory loss. Study participants that didn't exercise continued to decline.
Now, the group that was in the exercise program didn't deteriorate. They stayed the same. So although we didn't improve their memory, perhaps we kept them from experiencing the normal age-related decline that people have in memory function.
Alzheimer's expert Dr. Michael Romagera joins us in the studio now. Thanks for coming, Dr. Romagera.
Thank you very much.
What do you think? Can exercise and lifestyle make a difference in a person's memory when it comes to Alzheimer's?
Well, when you talk about exercise, I believe that exercise can improve everyone's well-being, sense of well-being. There are some studies that show that exercise may improve oxygen consumption in all organs and may improve short-term memory in some individuals, but whether or not it's going to help Alzheimer's patients in the long run is really unknown.
What role do you see genetics playing in Alzheimer's and the treatment of Alzheimer's and the screening of Alzheimer's?
Well, I think probably the number one goal for a geneticist at this time is to get some sort of diagnostic criteria together so that we may become better at diagnosing Alzheimer's prior to it becoming a problem.
So how close are we to doing that?
Probably within the next 5 years, we'll probably be able to screen out certain types of genetic disorders, Alzheimer's being one of them. With Alzheimer's disease, there are at least 3 different genes that are involved, and certain abnormalities in these genes can be detected.
Then you have the question, why do I want to know that I have the Alzheimer's gene? What good would it do?
If people know that they have the gene for Alzheimer's disease, then they perhaps could make some changes in their lifestyle which can alter the outcome. For example, it may not just be carrying the gene that determines whether or not one gets Alzheimer's. It may be the gene in combination with certain external factors, such as exposure to certain toxins, certain viral infections, or even, as you mentioned, exercise may change the outcome.
And as research goes along, people can monitor that. And if they have the gene, they might try to avoid that and decrease their chances of being diagnosed.
Exactly.
What about preparations, too? We talked earlier about that. What kind of preparations can you make, or could you make, if you knew you had the Alzheimer's gene?
Well, I think the number one thing is to stay healthy as much as you can, knowing that you have the Alzheimer's gene, or in determining whether or not you're going to develop Alzheimer's later on. I believe it's important to have that information. For example, it may allow you to get your life in order prior to developing symptoms. The other thing, too, is we may find out at some point that as soon as you begin to develop symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, that beginning treatment earlier may help out.
Just one more thing here before we go. One of the toughest issues facing caregivers when it comes to Alzheimer's is the possibility of putting an Alzheimer's patient or a family member in a nursing home. What do you tell a family member that faces that tough decision?
Well, I think it's very, very, very important to make the family member feel at ease about their decision. I think the hardest decision to make is to put one of your loved ones into a nursing home. And most people will try to take care of an Alzheimer's patient at home. And it gets to a point where that patient may be a danger to themselves and also may be a danger to others. And then someone will make a decision to go with a nursing home or to go with some other care facility. And I think it's extremely important to give your support as a physician, to give your support for that decision.
Thank you, Dr. Omoguera. Ahead on Alzheimer's Slipping Away, imagine having Alzheimer's patients and kids together in the same daycare. It's happening right here in Baton Rouge. We'll tell you more. Also, where families of caregivers can go for help.
Today, doctors have more ways to help patients than ever before. Some new, others still unsurpassed. Among these, the precision-enhancing surgical laser has earned a place of its own, a place we call the Laser Center of Louisiana at Baton Rouge General Medical Center, Baton Rouge preferred hospital for surgery. Ask your doctor what's best for you and call us for this free booklet about laser surgery. It has its place.
Today, working hand in hand, a family of healthcare service providers is offering a single source for comprehensive, cost-effective, quality healthcare, a continuum of care to help ensure a lifetime of the best possible health for every member of every family in our community.
The continuum of care is what the General Health System is all about, working together to keep your family healthy.
The General Health System, teaching, leading, caring.
Tonight's WAFB Healthline Report is sponsored by the Baton Rouge General Medical Center.
As we mentioned earlier, one of the biggest challenges facing families of Alzheimer's patients is how to best care for their loved one without losing their own sanity in the process. For those who aren't ready to consider long-term care, adult daycare may be an option. One of the most unique adult daycares in the country just so happens to be right here in Baton Rouge. It's called Crossroads.
Can you count to 2 and twist it around for me twice? That's good, all right, fine.
You're watching one of the so-called intergenerational activities that makes Crossroads so unique. At this adult daycare facility, both children and adults spend between an hour and an hour and a half a day together. Experts aren't sure why, but they say something special happens when the two groups mix. Alzheimer's patients once known for negative, even outrageous behavior become totally different people.
When we had first started the pilot study, we had a little old man who he always cussed and just said a lot of foul words and different things. And when the children were around, he was just always smiling and talking to the children and playing with them, and he's just, none of the angry, negative behaviors came out that we saw when the staff was just by themselves with it.
He goes up, down, up, down.
When Crossroads clients aren't with the children, they're taking part in other activities designed to stimulate the body and mind. Virginia Buckmeister came here after suffering several strokes. Since she doesn't have Alzheimer's, she's able to help coordinate activities at the center. She looks forward to the time she spends here.
I'd hate sitting home by myself. My daughter and her husband both are gone to work. My daughter's a teacher and he works by the engineers.
Our goal here at Crossroads is to try, to keep these clients as independent as possible and to, try to prevent the 24-hour long-term care for these clients. We feel like by coming here and getting the stimulation, whether it be mental or physical or even social stimulation, this is a way that, the families they can still get things done during the day that they need to do. And, they can go to the grocery store, go to the bank, do whatever they need to do, but they can bring their dementia patient here and they'll be cared for in a safe environment.
Dr. Donnie Beatty says without help like adult daycare, some caregivers can become immobilized themselves.
If they become so overworked and exhausted, it leads to illness. And then they're faced with, I'm sick in the hospital, and who's taking care of my husband and my wife, who is impaired?
A caregiver that isn't able to give care is of little use to their loved one. But how long should a person wait before looking at adult daycare?
For those caregivers that really, they hold jobs, they've got children of their own, these caregiving responsibilities become too much. They can't function on their own in their own environments and their own responsibilities that they've got to take care of for themselves. So when it becomes overloaded, when there's not enough family resources, actual people in the family to help out, those are times to look outside in the community for help.
As for the people at Crossroads, they plan to expand their facilities so they can take on more clients. The center also hopes to increase the number of people it offers services to through new Medicaid coverage.
Crossroads is one of a growing number of adult daycare facilities in Baton Rouge and across the country. We've covered a lot of ground in our special on Alzheimer's tonight. Unfortunately, a half hour couldn't begin to touch on all the aspects of this terrible disease. We do know headway is being made in knowing how to better care for Alzheimer's patients and their families. We also know researchers are continuing to close in on ways that may someday keep our stricken loved ones with us much longer than they are today. Early screenings may someday even lead to opportunities to prevent Alzheimer's altogether. In the meantime, here's a phone number you can call if you find yourself with any lingering questions about Alzheimer's. Whether it's about daycare, the guilt that goes with putting your family member in a nursing home, or just how to get involved in a support group, the people at this number can help. If you haven't already written it down, the number's 343-3200. It's the Louisiana Geriatric Assessment Center. They'll be glad to take your call. That number again is 343-3200. That's our program, Alzheimer's Slipping Away. Thanks for joining us.